Hello, this is Greg Smalley with Pod 366, joined today by directors and animators and musician Scott Bateman below me,
Hello.
and my co-host Giles to my left.
Hello.
And I just recently, only today, found out today is actually Independent Animation Day.
I didn't even know that. Nobody sent me any cards.
I didn't even see any card options at the drugstore.
So it's quite serendipitous. That's one of those, I don't know who started that holiday up. It's probably some independent animator started it for himself, but
Or some hipsters. Sounds like what they might do too.
Probably Bill Plimpton.
could be.
Always.
So we're going to talk about some movies that are releasing this week first on in various formats, and then we're going to ask Scott about his new movie 5,000 Aliens, which is also a movie that's releasing this week. 5,000 Space Aliens.
Yes.
For some reason, I always leave out the space. I don't know why.
That's okay.
All right. So let me bring up the list of movies we're talking about today, and you'll see that there's a good deal of them, but fortunately,
Especially if we cover completely that one Disney thing and talk about all.
talk about every movie in the Disney set. But fortunately, we'll be able to get through them pretty quickly. And let's start with this because it's going to be the easiest to see for people who own a Netflix subscription. And that is, Giles, do you know what we're looking at?
I believe it has something to do with Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, that looks Scott Pilgrim-y to me. Yes.
So yeah, this is the sort of the it's being pitched, I guess, as an anime version of Scott Pilgrim on Netflix. The it's a series instead of just a movie, but although I think it's based a lot on the original graphic novel, which I haven't read, they got all the cast, or at least all the major cast from the movie adaptation to do the voices, which I thought was really cool. That they all agreed to do that. And that's that. I don't even know how it releases on Friday. I don't even know how many episodes it is.
I remember hearing about this a few months ago, and I thought it was a really clever thing, to turn into a series based on the graphic novel, but also to get the original cast back to do voices is just very smart.
Yeah, it says here on the Wikipedia that they got everybody. If we're to trust their use of the word entire.
Surely there's some minor extra that's not on there, but somebody had one line. But it's definitely Michael Cera and Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and I don't know. There's just
Kieran Culkin, Chris Evans, and Brie Larson. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty thorough.
It was the cast they assembled for that was just really amazing because Michael Cera was known, and but a lot of those people were not that well known. Jason Schwartzman was known, but they went on to have really big careers. Also,
yeah.
Go ahead. I was going to say I never saw. I've just seen like stills of the original graphic novel. I never read it. So I don't know. I think that this looks closer to the graphic novel. It definitely has anime influences. I don't know if that's the original author of the novel was influenced by anime. They have the characters in this have those big eyes.
Yeah, this looks to me like the original graphic novel sort of art. I haven't really read it either, but I've seen pages of it in various places. And I think that's a good way to go for this story.
And so as an animator, Scott, what do you think of, have you seen like trailers? They've released a bunch of trailers for
I have not actually.
Oh.
I've missed out on this completely. But I'm always excited when animation looks different, and this animation style I haven't really seen quite this style on Netflix or in other places before.
So we will have trailers. We'll have one trailer on our blog post where this will appear. And there are a bunch of other trailers out there. Giles, you have any thoughts before I move on? Or
I mean, I suppose there's a chance we'll review this in the future, and I guess it might make as much sense as anyone for me to do it since I haven't seen the live action motion picture and so won't be biased.
I also think they probably made a mistake by not calling it Kapak. That should be the title.
I like.
I want to save that for a few episodes in, a big dramatic delivery there.
Oh yeah.
It is for some reason called Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, which I think almost makes it sound like it's a different story, but it's going to be the same story. So,
or maybe it's an optimistic
projection
of how it's going to do.
They're talking about how
it's aspirational title.
That's that. Here we go. So this next one is a movie that's going to be in theaters this week and probably not near you. I don't know where it's playing. It's going to be on VOD next week. And I'm sure, well, I'm not sure, but I imagine Scott hasn't seen it. I haven't seen it. But I do know that Giles has seen an advanced copy. So we're going to let Giles give us a brief, spoiler-free, hopefully, description of it. I am going to say, looking at the poster that we have up here, the psychedelic element is very pronounced on this poster, which looks like sort of a Giallo poster with sort of an acid trip overlaid on top of it.
Well, I give virtually nothing away, seeing as a particular key scene happens in the first 5, maybe 10 minutes, in which the two main characters, a couple whose relationship is on the verge of collapse, and they're now married and sort of going on a honeymoon. And early on in that, they manage to get a whole lot of peyote, and various things occur in jagged memory snippets at points. Sometimes it's more straightforward. It's interesting. It takes place primarily in one hotel suite, which is kind of a neat touch. And I gotta say, I guess as much as it annoyed me at the time, I was incredibly impressed with how much I hated the guy in the relationship and how quickly the director was able to make me hate this guy, which is key for the proceedings. And wonderful lead performance from Kimberly LaFerriere as the more adult sensible of the pair there, as they hang out in their hotel room in an adults only what's the word I'm looking for, resort in Miami. So yeah, it was interesting, and it made me think. And yes, next week you'll be able to read further my reactions to this particular thing, which probably has the most peyote I've ever seen consumed on screen, especially considering the movie's at 90 minutes. So
4.5 stars for the poster.
Oh
yeah, that is not an inaccurate poster, but it is different than the impression certainly I imagine we three are getting from it. But I have good things to say.
If you're just listening to this and can't see it, the poster is basically hot pink and orange faces, and then sort of a black background with these I guess spiraling
hexagonal thing going on. It's a great poster. Probably awesome under a black light.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really cool poster. And that's Do Not Disturb. which you should probably be hoping to see on VOD next week, because I don't think you're going to be at that theater where it's playing. But let's move on to another one. This is another one that you're probably not going to be able to see right now unless you're in New York City, where it's playing at Film Forum, or Los Angeles, where it will be playing next week. It is Black God, White Devil. It is a 1964, I think. I can look that up. Release, a Brazilian movie that's been restored and re-released. And one of the reasons that it's, notable is because it's been restored by Janus Films, which means that it's going to be in the Criterion collection in 2024. They, I don't know that they ever restore a film that doesn't then get a release on Criterion collection. So this, even if you can't get out to see it, it's going to be coming to the Criterion collection very soon. I doubt either of you have seen it. Maybe Scott's seen it.
I have not seen it, but I've been seeing people talking about it on Letterboxd, and people are excited that this is being restored and getting out into the world. So,
right now, I only know it from reputation. It's one of those movies that gets talked about a lot, but people hadn't seen it in America, at least, a lot. It's a Brazilian movie. It is. I could read the synopsis, and I think I will. Glaberoca's sophomore feature, scorched earth allegory about blind followers of dead-end ideologies. In the Brazilian hinterlands, 1940s, a ranch hand becomes an outlaw after killing and swindling his boss. He pledges allegiance to a self-styled holy man who preaches revolt against rich landowners, even as he perpetrates unspeakable acts of zealotry against the innocent, and so on. So it's sort of got a kind of Western, and people have talked about it as a Brazilian Western, or a proto spaghetti Western even, and a lot of politics and religion in it, where I think both the right and the left come off badly. And there is a lot of mysticism and perhaps some light surrealism, I have heard from reports. Other than that,
something about this poster reminds me of Louis Buñuel's Simon of the Desert, which I don't know what it is exactly, but it just which kind of goes over a little bit of some of the same issues, but it's a great film. So.
Yeah, that's a similar, about the same time period.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And looking at this poster now, it's sort of got a similar structure. Well, certainly the way the images are placed. Yeah, it's got the fella dominating the left-hand lower third. And title, and that whole wild hair look thing definitely popping out of the screen for those who looking up the Buñuel or seeing this striking fellow on your screens now.
He's got early hippie hair or very late Jesus hair, I guess.
Or he was in a grunge band in the 90s, not sure which.
Yeah, that's I could definitely see briefly a Nirvana drummer or something.
I think he played bass for Pearl Jam.
Yeah, well, after the Nirvana thing, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Got to do something.
The Black God, White Devil is really sort of an intriguing movie to me. I've heard a lot about it over the years, not so much as to spoil it at all, but just sort of generally heard good things about it, and we'll finally get a chance to see it very soon, which I'm excited for, because it looks like one of those classic art house movies that you want to cross off your bucket list.
Yeah, I'll want to see this eventually. Yeah.
Okay.
Whoa.
So this one, This we don't have I don't have the cover. I got a nice still instead for this one. So quiz time. Who can identify this still for us? Or Giles, you can describe it a little briefly and then
Oh, right. Well, there's a lot going on here. Dominating the lower center of the frame is an angled structure with some barred windows. It's a red kind of shed-looking thing, but inside it is I'd say it's someone. Can't quite tell. Probably woman, maybe. I don't know. Very distressed, but flanking this in the foreground is kind of dazed, a couple bottles of wine into the evening, platinum blonde woman in a yellowish robe, towel kind of thing. And on the other side of the red shed structure is a somewhat addled looking, maybe a slightly older woman with brunettes and white hair at, I'll say a 45-degree angle pointing toward the middle of the screen, which of course brings the eye to what I'm guessing is the dominant female figure in this, who is wearing similarly the yellow towel / robe thing. At an incline, reclining atop the red structure, is a woman who looks very comfortable smoking a cigarette. Just behind her, you can see it's either a door or a window, or it might be a strange mirror, judging from the potential light bulbs flanking it. Around the yellow frame, where there's another fellow who is not smoking, but his hand gesture really suggests he could be. And these 5 figures are all eye-catching in their way, and it looks all set up against what is maybe a dark theater backdrop or something like that.
and what's the movie?
I'm gonna guess Dr. Caligari. Or Caligari, or
It's a new Air Bud.
off screen. Just
It's off screen, yes.
pan the camera to the right, and he's right there looking at all this with us.
So we've talked about Dr. Caligari before. The reason we're doing it again. So it didn't. Dr. Caligari was missing from home video for a long time, or there was a copy. But you had to buy it from a porno retailer who had the exclusive rights. And then in 2019, I think they released a nice DVD, and then a Blu-ray soon after that. And now it's on 4K UHD.
Oh, Mondo Macabro.
I didn't even know Mondo Macabro could do 4K UHD. So this may be their first one, as far as I know. And I think this movie may be the flagship in their catalog, so it would make sense.
Right.
That means the technology must be, pretty accessible to everybody. And that is basically why I'm bringing this one up. We have discussed it, as I said before. I think, Giles, you discussed it on an episode.
I mean, I may have. I've never seen it, but I know I've been involved in a conversation that's recorded about it.
What year is this from?
89.
I would have guessed about that, yeah.
I want to say it's
That sounds
very 80s color scheme, and it's an update on expressionist style. It is
1989 is right.
1989.
This psychedelic surrealist neo-noir reworking of the 1920 German expressionist classic. Well, those are some high-sounded words for something I haven't heard described that way before.
Giles, with your love of 80s new wave, this is something you should be very keen to see.
Certainly now that it's on 4K and I can, enjoy its Caligari-ness on the 65-inch something I splurged on a couple years back.
Very campy, very the director Steven Sedayan, I probably have massacred his name, was very much a visual artist guy.
I can see that.
So the acting is not really up to
Wow, that's all right. I don't want good acting all the time, nor should
the set designs he comes up with on this are very Dali-esque, and they are just amazing, particularly considering the extremely low budget he was working on. And there's a good deal of sex in it too, as he came from a pornography background, although it's not a porno film. Very sexy though.
Oh, this is a great little blurb from Wikipedia. He was the advertising creative director for Larry Flint Publications and an art director and production designer for VHS box art covers and movie posters.
There you go.
So, and Scott, you've never seen it. I'm taking it from your
Never seen it before.
Expression. Definitely one. Anybody with an interest in cult cinema and sort of light pop surrealism should take a gander at. But we have discussed it before, so we'll just move on. This, unfortunately, didn't get a really big image for this, although there's not really a whole lot to see there. This is not something you're likely to purchase. You can't purchase it from us through a link because we don't get a commission, and I couldn't find it. It is Disney's Legacy Blu-ray set, 100 movies. 100 movies.
What?
It is 100 movies, and you will drop at least $1,500 to collect.
Yeah, that's presuming you get pre-order, because I wouldn't be surprised if this
pre-order period is over too. So
okay.
Probably going to be close.
Actually, this is Disney. They do like to keep selling stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if as needs must, they'd churn out more of these.
So it is like Disney's top 100 movies, basically.
Oh my God.
Everything. It starts with Snow White and ends with some of the latest ones they've done, Inside Out, and probably some movies after that.
Is it just animated films, or do we get like the Computer Wore Tennis Shoes and Apple Dumpling Gang?
They have a whole list. Let me see.
Yes, don't read the whole list. But...
Oh no, I won't. I was just checking those two. It looks to be predominantly animated.
It's all animated.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure there's no.
The only reason, I hedged there was it said Frankenweenie, which is not animated, unless of course they're talking about the animated redo.
Probably the redo, yeah.
Oh yeah, 2012. Okay, so this is 100 cartoons for $1,500.
Yes, and you get also some collectible posters. I think they said they had a poster, excuse me, for every movie that's included, and a little crystal Mickey Mouse hat.
Oh, is that crystal? I thought it was like a little paper foldy thing.
Classy.
No, fake crystal. I don't think it's actual.
I hope it's
what?
Yeah, I wouldn't accept anything less than Swarovski quality Mickey Mouse hat.
But yeah, so that's 100 Disney movies, and of course the ones we particularly are interested in. Well, the one is Fantasia, which is my
yes
one,
and then Fantasia 2000, the update, and also on here is Alice in Wonderland is one we've reviewed.
Oh,
and Nightmare
Before Christmas,
which is Disney technically.
Technically, yes.
I'm sure they'd insist it's very much theirs, but yes,
they own it. Yeah. So, and it's a Christmas.
It's a lot of stuff I would not be interested in watching. Also,
right.
So,
well, I've never seen the Three Caballeros from 1942. So,
I saw that as a child, like in a movie theater somewhere, and it was fun. But it might not be, as PC today as it was back then.
Yeah,
just for a lot of the older Disney stuff. So
yeah, there's that potential, and also a kind of cartoon you saw in a cinema from Disney that's almost guaranteed to be better as a kind of happy, vague memory.
that's yes, exactly.
I will say, speaking of not PC, Song of the South is not on this. So
Well, that's only partly animated. That's why. Otherwise, bam, it would be right there, front and center.
The starring movie in the whole set.
they'll release it someday, I bet. I'm willing to bet. I'd place a bet on it. Not anytime soon, though.
Yeah.
Just when the people have forgotten it existed, then they'll release it as a historical curiosity. So yeah, like a Christmas present for somebody who's got way too much money and loves Disney. But I thought since we were doing this and we have an animator here, we just ask Scott, what Disney movie, story and all other considerations aside, but just on the basis of animation alone, what Disney movie would you recommend or suggest?
Oh, you've already mentioned it, which is Fantasia, which is definitely still a favorite of mine, and really one of the few Disney movies I'm very into at all. So there's some great stuff going on in that movie.
I'm imagining the Night on Bald Mountain segment.
Yes, very good. And the Sorcerer's Apprentice is just very classic. So
yeah, they did a lot of different styles too, because there's some very, very abstract stuff. I love the Tchaikovsky sequences with the fairies. Those are really cool.
They're pretty.
So
They're pretty.
yeah.
If that's what you're looking for in your pictures, pretty.
Whatever.
Yes, if you got $2,000 to drop, there you go. But let's move on quickly. Not quickly, but we got about 2 minutes to cover. We're going to cover these two together, so 3 films. So this is just a pair of movies that have already been out on DVD, being released, or on Blu-ray, being released on 4K UHD, now in steelbook format, which is people collect. And so both from Image Entertainment, and so we can just talk about them together to the extent we have to, which is, and they're both Nicolas Cage movies. So to capitalize perhaps on Dream Scenario being released this week, excuse me. And so it's Color Out of Space, which is the H.P. Lovecraft adaptation directed by Richard Stanley, who came kind of out of retirement to direct Nicolas Cage in this H.P. Lovecraft, very faithful adaptation of Color Out of Space. And Sympathy for the Devil, which is his, I could say latest, but he's put out 2 or 3 since then. It's a 2023 movie that Giles has reviewed.
Yeah, that's 2 decades in Cage years.
Yeah.
So yes, they're both available in collectible editions for collectors. I haven't seen Sympathy for the Devil. Color Out of Space, I'd say if the words Nicolas Cage and H.P. Lovecraft appeal to you, that combination will appeal to you.
They just seem to go naturally together for me. So,
well, have you seen Color Out of Space?
I have not seen either of these films yet. I'm way behind on my Nicolas Cage, which is pretty easy to do because he'll put out probably a couple of movies during this podcast. So.
Yeah. Man, that's I just want to quickly check here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, 112. So if he lives another few decades and keeps this busy, he'll start catching up with Christopher Lee.
112 total features, is it?
That's actor previous 112, upcoming 4. So yes, he's keeping at it.
So when he's 80, he can play like Saruman in another reboot of The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, we can have
that would be pretty cool.
Yeah. And Peter, just bring back the 60-something-year-old Peter Jackson to do it again with a new crop of old, venerable, hundreds of role actor types.
Yeah.
So Nicolas Cage fan.
Yep, Nicolas Cage, yeah.
Nicolas Cage fans and Steelbook fans, look into it. but we're gonna just go on to a movie, another movie I haven't seen, and I'm not sure if anybody here has seen it, but we had a writer cover it. It is Computer Chess, which is a movie about people. It's Andrei Bujalski, and it's about people writing programs to back in the 70s to play chess, and the programs they write will compete against each other in this tournament. It is a comedy, sort of period comedy, that's also a bit surreal and has a bizarre sense of humor. At the convention, they're sharing the convention with some old people who are. Have you seen it, Scott?
No, I haven't, but it's on my list. I think it's on Criterion Channel right now until the end of the month. And or maybe it was last month that it went away, but it's been on Criterion Channel this year. And the one thing I understand about this movie is that it was filmed with like vintage 70s like video equipment. So it has this real look of being in the 70s, which I'm dying to see it.
Yeah, that's looks promising. Interesting premise, and 366's own Orion Arset had good things to say about it. So
Yeah. Yes, and it's. I just closed out the window. I had up a window from what's on it, but I think I can remember. See, this hadn't been on Blu-ray before, and on the 10th
I
anniversary,
have it up if you want me to do a quick.
they've released it and given it a number of sort of cool extras.
Yeah.
Of one of which is there's an alternative commentary track that's simply credited to an enthusiastic stoner.
Yes, I was just
Excellent. Every movie should have that. I was also noticing the poster design is a bit like a VHS tape box.
I recognize
I just now noticed
scheme.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Another feature on there was an AI generated trailer for a sequel. So
Yep, written and directed by cool.
They came up with a lot of nifty stuff for this movie, which has a small cult following. You haven't seen it, Giles, right?
No, I haven't, but I'm now very much sold on the prospect.
Yeah, I want to see this.
It's very very enticing. I just haven't been able to get around to it.
Same.
Something I'm definitely.
Oh wow, it's streaming now if you've got Prime Video.
Oh, there you go.
So
like I said, it either is or has been on the Criterion Channel this year. So it's really kind of getting seen a lot suddenly, which is great.
Yeah, I hope it takes off from that. So, and again, this is our last movie.
What?
Scott's not even familiar. Doesn't even know that this existed. We discussed it when it was out in theaters. It is Spirited Away live on stage, the Japanese production of Spirited Away.
Wow.
That they did two versions of with two different leads, and so you get two Blu-rays on here. And it's just live version of stage version of Spirited Away.
But not Spirited Away on ice.
No, not
yet. I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, that would be great,
I don't like
actually.
These half measures between animation and skating. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, the Radish Spirit on skates would just be so magnificent. So
you see,
massive arena for that. That could be really, really awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are some songs, I think, in it. I'm not 100% sure. I do notice that both of the actresses are way too young to be playing the lead, are way too old to be playing the lead,
right.
in their 20s instead of like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
That might be because there's singing involved. I don't know. It might be a cultural thing. I don't know. But yeah, it's Japanese the theatrical version of Spirited Away.
Are there dance numbers?
There could be. We don't know. People, the Amazon reviews are very positive. So people who had seen it in theaters, it did play cinemas earlier this year for
Yeah, they did some live telecasts of a performance and transmitted it to Points International.
Yeah, so it had fans. I don't know, I don't know what to say about it. I don't know. I'd check it out of curiosity more than anything.
I would too, actually. Yes.
All 5 hours and 20 minutes of it, but then again, that might be just the same thing twice over.
It is. It's the same thing twice over with two different actresses. I don't think the sets are even any different. I think they just swapped out actresses. For
Oh,
what
wow.
reason, I don't know, but that's what I
Actually, with that, if you could do a scene shuffle between the two of them, so you get different a sequential, the story in order, but different heads popping up.
Yeah. So I presume everybody's a fan of the original animated.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay. And speaking of things that are animated, we're out of movies and we're going to come back in a little bit. But there is actually one more movie that's coming out soon, and we'll talk about it more in just a bit. But I have something up here for it. Giles, can you describe what we're looking at in the last minute or so?
Yes, it's sort of a cardboard concrete background. Left-hand side, there's a fellow old-timey athletic guy with nice center-cut hair wearing a onesie, and he's pierced by a fork that is about 1.5 times his height. And above this fork's handle is big news. 5,000 Space Aliens is coming to streaming platforms worldwide on November 21st.
That's very good.
Interesting. So
you're really good at describing things.
Greg tests me a few times a week.
What we're going to do is take a brief break and come back and talk about these 5,000 Space Aliens, every single one of them, in the next segment.
Yes.
And we'll talk to Scott Bateman about everything that goes into 5,000 Space Aliens. And so we will see you in just a minute. Let me say goodbye, and we'll be back. It won't be any time at all for you. So, hello, we're back. I told you it wouldn't be any time at all, and it wasn't. And once again, there's the announcement of the 5,000 Space Aliens coming to streaming platforms worldwide on November 21st. And we're going to talk to Scott Bateman about this. So first, I'll probably let Giles ask a lot of questions, but so to describe it, would you like to describe it, Scott?
I can try. Yeah, it's basically it's a non-narrative film, animated film, 5,001 second shots of people or space aliens, and set to music, and it's kind of more of a like a roller coaster ride or something than a narrative experience. It's just something you kind of sit back on the couch and watch and enjoy.
Absolutely. And that was actually one of the questions, and I think it's sort of a benefit of this film, is that it doesn't tell you how to watch it. You don't have to watch this movie front to back. You could start in the middle if you wanted. You can sit there on the couch and watch it all the way through. You could put it on for a while, pause, start it up again. You could just put it on in the background in a party. Because of its non-narrative nature, you don't have to just watch it the way you would a normal film, and it gives you a lot of options.
Oh yeah, it does. It really does. And a friend of mine saw it for the first time, and and about 5 minutes in, she just suddenly felt relieved, like, oh, I don't have to keep track of a story. I can just watch this and kind of zone out and relax. This is great.
Is there I don't think there is, but did you intend some sort of logic to the order of the images?
No, I did not. I mean, there are series of images that kind of go together or were placed together for a reason, but the whole thing together is not like a cumulative 5,000 step story.
And is each of the 5,000 aliens actually based on a actual person?
Well, this is a good question because a lot of them, a lot of the material in the film is kind of rotoscoped from found footage in kind of the same way that Richard Linklater did Waking Life by kind of tracing over live footage that he had shot. And so basically just finding a lot of old public domain kind of footage I could do that with. So a lot of old home movies, which are great. Found some great old vintage TV commercials to kind of trace over and what have you, and add little animated elements to. And when you're working with that kind of footage, you don't have to focus on like the main person in the footage. You kind of get someone in the background and make a little animation of that person, like, and cut everything else out, which is a lot of fun. And then there's also some more collage-like footage, which used a lot of public domain photographs. A lot of old photographs from I found on the Flickr Commons from like old photo studios in Romania and Venezuela, the 50s and 60s, that someone salvaged all their old negatives and stuff and put them up on the Flickr Commons. So there's some of those people in there as well.
Wasn't there a big I seem to recall there's a big dump of public domain video that just happened probably recently or just before you did this from the National Archives or the Library of Congress or someone. Was that involved in this? Or
there are some photographic images from that, not as many as from the other sources from on the Flickr Commons, but yeah, that was just a huge upload of old images from like old photographs from like the 1910s and 20s from an old news service. So they had sent someone out whenever a big ship arrived in New York City. This was big news to have someone come out and photograph all of the famous people who were on the ship that just arrived from London.
And then I'm imagining a lot of the other people that are in there are friends and co-workers and maybe Kickstarter backers.
Yes, there are a lot of the Kickstarter backers are right at the end of the movie, actually, because I was almost done editing by the time I got most of their footage, which was fine. It made them sit through the entire movie just to see themselves, so I was happy with that.
And I think that I may have seen, while we're on the subject of the subjects of the photographs, I may have seen a familiar face or two. Were there any celebrities that found their way in there, or did I imagine it?
There are a few people who might be recognizable. I've had people recognize a couple of them before. I don't know if I should even say here because it's more of like an Easter egg for you to while you watch the movie. So you might recognize people. You might. I'm just saying.
Yes. Okay. So I won't even say who I thought I caught sight of.
Oh, I'm curious now. So tell me who you thought you saw.
Well, it was probably just a guy who looked like John Wick in there.
Oh, there's no John Wick in there for sure. No, definitely not.
I think there was probably speaking of rotoscoped movies, the one with Keanu Reeves.
Scanner Darkly.
Yes, a Scanner Darkly.
Scanner Darkly, right.
So that and a lot of the imagery looks sort of like that kind of rotoscope thing. So it might have been somebody who looks, similar to that. And I thought, wow, is that? But at 1 second, you don't get a chance to really look very carefully and say, is that a celebrity or a lookalike or just somebody that looks vaguely like them? And
yeah, and just a few seconds later, you're so far past that person already that you don't even remember by the time you finish watching the film. It really does like reward repeat viewings in that way. You keep finding people you blinked during or something.
Absolutely. Giles, do you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I'll start with a compliment, and I'm sure that'll spur me forward with some other observations. But going back to the first Linklater feature we mentioned, I would never compare your film to Waking Life because I found yours very interesting and worth watching. Um,
That's fair. I'll take that. Yes, thank you.
I believe I fall into one of those perhaps minority of one categories that Waking Life really bored me, whereas 5,000 different images rotoscoped did not, as I was reminded only less than an hour before this interview that, oh yeah, I'd seen this, and then, oh yeah, I really liked it. So much so
Great.
that apparently I'm in the promotional material somewhere, somehow.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that.
Uh, so yes, glancing over my review, a few things spring to mind. This is not based on, but almost certainly an extension of a previous project of yours wherein you focused on 600 space aliens. Now
Yeah.
this kind of project, obviously once you've done it once, it can expand to however far you've got the time and patience to do it. What was it that triggered the first batch of aliens as a project?
Yeah, well, basically the 600 space alien short was kind of proof of concept that this idea might actually work over a long, like a feature-length film.
Hmm.
And I showed it at some film festivals and it did very well with audiences. I was thrilled. So I just took that as encouragement to just do a feature film version of it. But the initial ideas was kind of there were several all at once. Um, I wanted to do a movie after my last feature film, like another movie, but I had no money and it was going to be hard to raise any money. And so I thought I need to find a way to do a movie by myself on my laptop. And can I make a movie that way? It's kind of an artistic challenge also. And I had been, in my previous films, I've played with found footage before. So I really enjoy the idea of trying to do a lot more with found footage, found materials from the internet.
Hmm.
And other things as well. Brain dead all of a sudden. But yeah, and just the idea, and I had kind of the 1 second. I'd been playing and editing in Premiere Pro with this kind of 1 second rhythm to shots, just for fun, and I was really liking it. So I wanted to see if that would work because I found that rhythm to be really hypnotic,
Hmm.
and that's actually something borrowed from an old experimental film from Hollis Frampton called Zorn's Lemma, where he did a film that was all with 1 second shots of words that he had filmed in various places on signs and stuff around Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that movie to be very calming and relaxing. And I wanted to try to, and since no one else had ever done that rhythm except for that film, I thought there was room to explore the concept.
Excellent. And thank you for mentioning Zorn's Lemma. I'd seen Zorn's Lemma. I didn't make the connection until now, and then I'm like, oh yeah. But when you're talking about rhythm, so that gives a reason to discuss the music because
oh, okay.
Music. So it goes on for 90 minutes, and it has a music track that goes on for 90 minutes, and it has to have that same beat the whole time. So it's electronic, it's minimalist, but every minute or so it's one of those things that like Philip Glass, it goes for a minute and then it shifts a little bit. And so what was your background in music before composing this?
I don't have a background in music.
Oh, I hate people like that going around.
Except for playing with music on GarageBand and things like that over the years. And just being I enjoy Philip Glass's soundtrack to Koyaanisqatsi and the other Qatsi films. So I wanted to make sure this film had something that would keep people kind of a companion for the person watching the film. The music is kind of acts as your friend along the way to keep you going. And I ended up doing the music myself because, like I said earlier, I was looking for a way to do a film on the cheap, and I can afford me as a composer. I can't afford anyone else as a composer. And there influence, yeah, Philip Glass is definitely an influence there, but there's also like influences from old 70s krautrock, like bands like Noi. There's some Stereolab influence in there as well. Some of the old kind of electronica stuff from the 90s, which I still like, and it might be a little cheesy now, but I love that stuff. It's just because it's, again, like how the film itself is just a bunch of ideas kind of mashed together. The music was too.
That's just incredible that you can just sit down and never have composed anything. And your first composition is going to be a 90-minute suite that is got to be extremely challenging to just work with one beat the whole way through. That's what software did you use for it?
Yeah, some of it was I have actually a MIDI Moog that I own. And so some of it was done on that, but then I brought all of it into GarageBand and played with stuff in there and kind of created my own loops and put them through various filters and amplifiers and things to just kind of give things a not MIDI type of sound, but give them some oomph. And yeah, it's funny because I get this idea, I'm going to do this film like this, I'm going to do the soundtrack like this, and you feel very confident at first, but you get midway through a project like that, and you're suddenly like, is anybody going to like this? Why am I doing this? But you just keep going and hope for the best.
Well, I'm glad you did keep going, because I got my review up here as I continue to refresh my memory, and I described this soundtrack as a pulsing power pop synth score composed by the filmmaker, drives the whole shebang, making 5,000 space aliens an absolute must for your art dance house party.
Like it.
Thank you. Which leads me to my question, will the soundtrack be available for those of us who may want to just listen to that as a thing we've got?
I have just in the past week put the soundtrack up on Bandcamp. And it's also a pay what you want price point. So you can put in zero. You can put in a
popular one, yeah.
You put in zero. You can put in a few dollars, whatever you think it's worth, and because that's a lot of the bands I like on band. I mean, it's kind of the culture of Bandcamp. I think basically, so many of the bands on there are just doing it that way, and they tend to break even. A lot of people will pay zero, but a lot of people will pay something for it, and just let them decide what that's worth to them. It makes a difference, I think. And I love Bandcamp.
I would, if you're going to get the soundtrack, I would definitely get the visuals to accompany it. So there's no reason not to. I mean, you can just get them
both. Get them both. Yeah, get the DVD and buy it digitally next week, and
through an 8mm projector while you have the soundtrack playing through your Marantz amp, and then you can really just get the whole thing going on there.
Yeah. Sit in the sweet spot of the stereo and just
and have your arty friends just sort of mill around you, looking cool. Speaking of arty friends, I haven't seen the Hollis Frampton thing, but the director who came to my mind when remembering this and thinking on it is Peter Greenaway. His early stuff.
Very big fan of early Greenaway through about 1980, and then it stops.
It becomes very different because he's doing one thing with his shorts and then doing something similar themes and practices in his narrative work, but yes, his like couple DVDs worth of the early shorts are all very much exploring sequencing, timing of audio and video, because the discussion here about shots lasting the 1 second and making the rhythm. There's a very early thing he did where he has just these different kind of still recorded things, and they get successively briefer as an exploration of whatever audio visual thing going on with that.
Yeah, I highly recommend the Greenaway shorts from the 70s and his first feature film, The Falls,
Oh yeah, that was
which
another
which
thing.
which, which is kind of the culmination of everything he was exploring with those, all the experimental stuff he was
Yeah.
trying to do with those shorts. Yeah, sometimes they're experimental, like in a conceptual way. Sometimes they're more experimental in a storytelling manner, but they're fun. He has such a wry sense of humor
Oh
back
my
in those
gosh.
days, and it's like some of those could be Monty Python sketches practically,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah. Oh,
the,
Dear
the
Phone.
argument the argument between the academics in a Vertical Features remake is such a Monty Python thing. I love that short.
And
Yes. Yes. They're.
I think Falls is a similar sort of movie in that it's another one that you can jump in and out of
Yeah, yeah,
point, and it doesn't demand that you watch it front to back. And you also mentioned Monty Python, so there is, I should point out, a good deal of humor in the 5,000 Space Aliens, including the animations come. We could do a taxonomy where they, there are different types that sort of recur. But the one
yes,
I'm thinking of, there are a lot of ones that look like they could be little Terry Gilliam animations from the original Monty Python flying circus show. So I'm assuming Terry Gilliam's animations were and as we saw in the one with the fork going through the guy,
yeah.
I think, so I'm assuming he was definitely an inspiration.
Oh, very much so. That whole the whole Monty Python's Flying Circus TV program, something I discovered as a early teen on PBS late at night, and I got all my friends to start watching it, and we were quoting it back and forth. It's still been a very big influence on my sense of humor all this time. And yeah, the Terry Gilliam animations are a big part of that.
Now, yeah, the animations are the one thing. Oh, they're the main thing. There are, 0 to 5,000 of them, depending upon which particular still, because some stills are only altered, some have stuff actively happening. If my memory serves, I'm kind of curious. I spend a bit of time in my review talking about the random text
Uh,
that comes on screen in 3 to 6 word blurbs, and I wonder if you might be able to talk a little bit about that, because it does. I'm guessing in one part it does break up what's happening, because it's a different way you're perceiving it when you're having to read it as opposed to just sort of have the image come. But there are some strange text things there, and I wonder if you might talk about them briefly.
yeah, online, on-screen texts are appear quite often in the film. Just little two and 3 word phrases, not on every one of the 5,000 space aliens, but fairly often throughout. And in some cases, they're just kind of there compositionally to make the design of the frame. There's like a little empty spot in the frame that I wanted to fill with something. And sometimes if they're there for the strangeness of the words. And these came from public domain sources as well. A lot of phrases came from this 1920s textbook on the history of philosophy up to that point. So, and there's some just great little phrases from, revolving around free will and the types of thought and stuff like that keep appearing throughout the film, which I like because I'm kind of a brain-oriented person, and so having things to talk about thinking and thought and philosophy are very important to me. And it also kind of gives the visual animation maybe a different meaning to the person watching it.
Yeah.
It kind of shifts the meaning of what they're seeing a little bit, which I like that idea. And there are also some texts from old H.G. Wells novels, like the Time Machine, not the Time Machine necessarily, but can't think, not War of the Worlds either, but
That third thing he did.
the third thing he did, yes. But just he had some good science phrases in some of these books where when they're talking about, when the guy is explaining his invention, like in the Time Machine, early on, he's talking about his invention. There's just great science phrases that you can just throw in there and like, what does that mean out of context? Very strange. but I think it makes it more fun for the viewer to try to like figure out what this means. I'm curious to see people's theories about what some of these mean, and that's what's fun for me, is seeing people's reaction.
Oh yeah, I can believe it. I scribbled a few down. Ones that stuck out to me were
Oh no.
give thanks to our fetishes, and what's probably, well, it might be, at least for succinctness sake, maybe the best of the lot. The phrase "science brain parts" is just a wonderful.
I think that's from H.G. Wells, and the previous one I think is from that philosophy textbook, Believe It or Not.
So yeah, it's definitely got. I've seen a few. I'll call them, in a very non-disparaging manner, art installation piece films. Now, there's The Falls. There's this one. There's something else I watched maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, that was done in a early '90s computer graphics style, which was an interesting nostalgic throwback for people my age and older can still remember the very early 3-dimensional explorations.
Very, very fun animation as a kind of retro throwback. I'd like to find software that actually does that again, because I like the look of those 3D, like from Tron type animation, with its little wireframe cubes and stuff.
Yeah, so it's like you got your 600 aliens, you got space aliens, and 5,000 space aliens. And I hope it's not too early to inquire, will we be seeing more space aliens at some point in the future?
That is a possibility, which is about all I can say right now. But if it is a possibility, it might not be for a little while.
Yeah,
because it takes time to make the 5,000 1-second animations.
Yeah, how
it's
long?
Not like I can't do that just like in a week or something.
Would you have like a rough estimate of because we have the 5,000 images. How long did you spend on this project?
It took about 2.5 to 3 years, and it wasn't just the 5,000 that you see in the film. There were probably about that many also that were really terrible.
Oh,
that didn't make the film. I wanted to be able to, didn't want to just make 5,000. I wanted to make a lot more, so I could like cut out the ones that I knew weren't very good.
So when this is on Blu-ray Ultra HD, will the disc have the outtake aliens, or a companion track with?
That is possible, and maybe I'll just do a commentary track over why these all suck, basically.
Really quickly.
Yes.
Keep yourself to 1 minute or 1 second exclamations of terror at your own.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
We need
this one too red. This one not very good. This one bad.
I just want to say we need to get an enthusiastic stoner to do the comment.
Oh,
every movie.
Hey, we know a guy. Greg, we know a guy.
It's true. So yeah, you said you did maybe 10,000 to get 5,000 perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm assuming also that each one you probably animated for more than 1 second and then had to snip it to a second.
Actually, no. Nearly all of them were done exactly as 1 second. I started doing it that way, actually, and I realized I didn't need to have like stuff at the beginning and end. I could just it was just easier to just do the minimum amount of work. So each one is exactly 1 second long. There's no outtake from each. Yeah.
Wow.
And also because I doubled up on the frames, it's not 24 frames, it's 12 frames, which is another shortcut for animators to take, which is great. And yet it still took 2.5, 3 years.
Does that so you did it in 12 frames rather than 24? Does that make it look a little more? Is that what gives it a little more of a jittery look to the eye, you think?
Yeah, it does. It does. That's back, I learned to animate like in the 90s, before tech was there to do any of this stuff on the computer. And so it was all, you draw a frame, you draw 100 frames, and you take a picture of one, and take it out, take a picture of another one. And working that way, it's good to double up because it saves you so much time and work. And I've always kind of continued that on because I like the jittery look.
Certainly,
Yeah.
sort of a theme to it, a unifying style. Giles, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that we talked a bit about animation in the earlier segment, and of course with this animated film art project thing. And yeah, I'm always happy myself to see animation that isn't necessarily fluid. Obviously, you get any number of examples of that happening with stop motion, and that's an entirely different beast. But with more traditional two-dimensional animation, I always am keeping at least a passive eye out for something different than a well-polished what have you. Those can be good, those can be very impressive. Many of them are amazing. No need to get started down a whole avenue of various nations, high, fine, wonderful quality animation, but it's the weirder things, oddly enough, that we're looking for when we're on this podcast and for this website, that it's nice when I can find something that is embracing the process more.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I think stop motion's a good touchstone for that, because I think a lot of stop motion is also a lot of old stop motion anyway. I don't know how they're doing it these days, but I don't know what they did on the Fantastic Mr. Fox or anything like that. But a lot of that the old stop motion that you from a long time ago was also 12 frames per second, again, because it's just easier and you don't have to move people as much. And that's kind of what gives a lot of that jittery look. And
yeah, I know for Fantastic Mr. Fox, I believe the director chose 16 to get a jittery look to it, because he also
that works, yeah,
make it feel,
there is some jitteriness there.
Yeah, because it was like, it was very nice, impressive, and more liquid than smooth, I guess might be a way I'd try to describe it.
That's accurate.
But
yeah, I'm also always looking for so many animated films, especially the big commercial ones. I mean, they're all starting to kind of look very similar to each other. So I think that's the influence of Pixar, because all those computer animation companies are always trying to kind of do the same thing. So I'm always very impressed and happy to see something that looks different, which is another impetus for me to make something that was more individually, idiosyncratically my style.
Yeah. And what would you say, what other motifs are in there? Because we've discussed, the fact that it's 12 frames, and it's very, very wide ranging. Obviously, you had to come up with 5,000 different ideas, and yet a lot of it seems somewhat unified. So what are the recurring motifs that you found yourself coming back to over and over again?
Yeah, there are. I mean, motion becomes kind of important in gesture in a movie like this. You kind of want something to be happening in that 1 second, usually. Sometimes not much happens, but so there are a number of things that involve dance and dancers, modern dance stuff I found on Vimeo that was copyright control or whatever that is. And but also parkour is another theme that kind of comes up throughout, people flipping in the air, and then cutting them out of the footage that they're in front of a building and putting them up high up in the sky, which it has a whole other meaning, I think. And that's a shot that kind of comes up a number of times in the movie, are people like kind of floating in the air, twisting and turning and what have you. And really for me, a lot of the film is about, and probably for nobody else actually, but for me, a lot of the film is about texture, the texture of the image, the paper texture and stuff like that, and repeating colors, repeating gestures as over several shots, and finding rhythms between the shots, having people react to the previous shot and stuff like that. And I think that especially those reaction shots make it a lot of fun for the viewer, I think, because they can see something and they see somebody like, what? And I like that.
It sounds like a good setup for a coffee table book about 5,000 pages long.
I would
Still
like
from each
to
of these,
I would
just
like to pitch that at some point if we can get this film to be kind of a cult classic or just get enough of a fan base behind it that we can either have a real publisher do it or do it on Kickstarter. Because I think a book would be pretty awesome. You can see like multiple frames from the same space alien together in print. You can have one big image for another one. Yeah, there's a lot we can do with that. It'd have to be a pretty strong coffee table.
oh yes.
Do you have one more question before our final question, Giles?
Gosh, I think
Ultimate question.
I think at least right now I'd say I'm ready for the final question.
Let's do one. Let's do one more. Just procedurally, when you were working on these, did you batch them to where you would do them, similar sort of stuff at once, and then cut them up and strew them through the film, or did you do it pretty much the way we see it?
Basically, I did all of the animations and all of the music kind of at the same time. I would, if I got stuck on animation, work on music for a while and vice versa. So at a certain point, I had the 5,000 images I wanted in no particular order, and the music I wanted also in no particular order. And so what I ended up doing was assigning some of the footage, the space aliens got assigned to either early or late in the film because they were really strong, either to start the film or to end the film. But then everything else just kind of got divided up randomly to each segment of the music. And then from there, things that seemed to match up with the events in the music, like a cymbal crash or a drum roll or something, would get placed, and you'd place things around it that went with that. And it basically, yeah, and then I would just do it one music track at a time. There's 11 movements to the soundtrack. And so I would get several hundred of those together, assigned to one piece of music, and figure out where they went with the music and what with each other. And then go on to the next piece of music. And the whole editing process was probably just a couple of weeks. That's my favorite part of making a film, and it goes pretty fast.
Well,
because on this case, I'm sorry, 5,000 1-second shots. There's like, well over 1 million different ways to edit that material mathematically. And so I didn't want to spend a lot of time pondering over alternate. I would still be editing, 3 years later. So I just decided to kind of go with my gut when I was editing and what felt right. And I like how it turned out.
A good deal of randomness is probably a good thing. And
it is, yeah.
And
something you don't see enough in movies either is randomness. So
it's a tremendous, the amount of work in it, it's a tremendous achievement, and
thank you.
Very proud of it. And Giles, you have one final question though, don't you?
Yes, I do. We at 366 here like to ask everyone we interview if they'd care to share their hometown with us, and can you recommend a restaurant there?
I currently live in Beacon, New York, which is about 80 miles north of New York City on the Hudson River, after living in Queens for about a decade. Kind of a nice to get away from the big city for a little bit. We have some very nice restaurants here, but one I would recommend is actually a pub with live music called the Town Crier. They bring in lots of great live bands, from bluegrass to kind of roots rock stuff, and the beer is great. The food is typical pub food. It's a very relaxed atmosphere. Sometimes they have open mic nights. You kind of randomly, you just walk in and suddenly it's open mic night. You're like, oh, okay. And there's some pretty talented people around here, so it's okay.
Great. Yeah, Beacon, New York. That's about an hour and a half south of me.
Oh, excellent.
I'm in Troy.
Oh, Troy. I hear great things about Troy. I have not been yet.
Every one of them true.
Yeah, like a really good performing arts auditorium.
We have the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall, which is a world-class acoustics venue.
Nice.
But that's
There was one thing that I had forgotten, escaped my mind, I wanted to mention before we get out of here, which is that our previous week's guest was Corey Maccabee, who has a new project out called Deep Astronomy and the Romantic Sciences, where a bunch of people have collaborated and added stuff to it. I only found out after we interviewed him that you had contributed to that program, so more serendipity there.
I did. That was I met Corey probably about 5-6 years ago when I was living in New York City. I was making a movie at that time, kind of a autobiographical movie about being depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a shot in mind that I wanted somebody pondering like a half empty, half full glass of water. And I had never met Corey before, but I've seen his films. I'm like, I've got to meet this guy and get him in my movie. And he was really up for it. And we had a great time filming that. We've been friends ever since. And I was just lucky that he roped me into Deep Astronomy, because that was a lot of fun to do. And so many people contributed to that movie, and it's just fans of his and other filmmakers, other animators. And I saw it recently, finally, and it's a lot of fun. And I mean, I've been a fan of his since The American Astronaut back 20 years ago. So,
and he will be releasing that soon, free to everyone. It's going to stream on his site, and we will mention it when that happens.
fantastic.
And so we are almost out of time. I do want to say we will be off next week for Thanksgiving. The following week we'll return with Richard Bailey, who's been on before, and we'll talk about his new movie, The Dark Sisters. And then after that, we have some more guests lined up, but we'll save till later to tease those. And so thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So great to be here. I had a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. We are going out.